Welcome to this episode of the Timer's Playbook. Today, it's with Dr. Rhameez Sheldon Herbst. He enjoys stargazing, telescope making, and music. You're going to tell me a bit about stargazing, right? Because I experienced it a bit. Initially, I was like, stargazing? No, boss, that's not my thing. He's from Johannesburg, is married, he's got 2 boys, aged 5, and 1 is nearly 7. Otherwise, Rhameez, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Stargazing. Look, I think socially speaking, it's one of the very important things that connect us as people. Getting to see the outside world, getting to see what's in the sky and connecting with that is fundamentally important. People are often blown away when they see pictures of images of Saturn through a telescope, images of the moon through a telescope, and people are kind of like, they thought this was fake. They thought these things were just not real. And the whole idea is, you take for granted telescopes existed long before photography existed. And so there's nothing more real than looking through a telescope.
Yeah.
It's as real as it gets.
I didn't know that, bro.
When you, right?
Yeah.
No, imagine, so I think astrophotography interestingly developed in South Africa in the 1800s by John Herschel. And we discover the ability to take pictures, to capture what we are seeing through a telescope for the first time, 200 years after these telescopes were created. I mean, once we knew how to build them, it was like, okay, cool. We can just make them bigger and better. When we knew what telescopes did, how they worked, we just made them bigger and better. So by like the mid 1700s, there were telescopes that were easily, 20 meters long. It's dark to say, but people were falling off scaffolds and dying trying to look through their telescopes. But, we needed to make them bigger to see fainter things. But we've been seeing through them longer than we have been able to capture them.
Yeah.
It's quite an interesting.
It's fascinating. And we're here because of the Timer's Playbook, right?
Right.
And it's I boil it down to my children.
Yeah.
If it wasn't because of my kids, I would have never come. Right. So if I known you and I didn't have children, I would have been like, no, boss,
what's the
gazing.
point? Yeah, exactly. What are you doing?
Are we going to play football? Are we watching something?
That's it. Yeah.
You see?
Yeah.
But they offer us an opportunity to experience things.
Absolutely.
Because they need to experience it and you need to be there. So it's opened my mind to a lot of stuff. And it was a very, very cool evening, actually.
Oh, awesome. Glad you enjoyed it.
Dr. Herbst, what are you a doctor of? What do you do?
Applied mathematics. I'm a lecturer at the University of Johannesburg. I'm a researcher. So my area of research, my area of expertise, if you want, is in computational methods. And so typically differential equations, which are used to model various phenomena. So from industrial application to engineering application, medical application.
You work a lot with young people, or you're in the space quite a lot.
Yes.
At a university.
Right. What
do you think is the issues that plague them the most, and do you think they are equipped to fix them?
That's an intense question, because we're dealing with a crisis at the moment on multiple levels. I think that when young adults arrive at university, there are certain expectations. Expectations are impossible to avoid. That's why we play trailers. You know what to expect when you watch a movie. So expectations are almost impossible to get by. So kids arrive from high school having been taught a particular way, having gained a certain understanding of how to behave, having integrated themselves socially in a particular way. And then they arrive at university and they're completely unprepared on every level. Now, from an education perspective, you can argue it's because the education's poor, it's because of, we can go down the list. It's not always because of poor education. It's because what you are taught at school is appropriate for your level of understanding.
Okay.
You asked me a second ago, make it simple. Sometimes you can, but there are certain parts of life that you cannot make simple.
Yeah.
Right? So as much as I'd love to make maths simple, there's only so simple I can make it before I start diluting the essence of it, and that essence is then lost. The other thing in terms of being equipped is that a lot of kids arrive and they are under the impression that it is grade 13.
Okay.
Okay, you finish matric, and you go on a long holiday, and then you change schools, end up in a new school. And this new school is just grade 13. It's a bit bigger, but you do the same stuff. It's a bad image. It's a bad image because they don't understand when you are at university, you are building yourself into an adult for yourself, for your family, for your incumbent family, the one that doesn't exist yet, the one that in 5 or 10 years' time, you're going to meet someone and decide to be married to this person. You're developing yourself for that person. But you're also developing yourself for the world, for your country, because you're going to be a functional person inside a job. You have to get a job. You're not going to university indefinitely, except if you're staying there to become an academic, which is then still developing yourself for the world. Yeah. And so these two aspects are very, they're not pushed at the high school level to say, look, this is the last time that there'll be serious hand-holding. You'll always have somebody to maybe put their hand on your shoulder, but no one's going to hold your hand once you finish high school. You really have to get into this for you, because you need to be functional as an element of the workforce at a later stage.
And understand why you're doing it.
Exactly.
So as someone who's in academia then, what do you make of the world and social media when they say that higher education or studying further is not necessary? You can make it, you can hustle, you can do it on your own. Is it necessary?
It depends on the person. And we have to be very careful how far we take that statement. So, for example, you could be the kind of person who has no interest in academia, especially at a high level. Do we now force you and say, well, we don't have a choice. We need you to be a chemical engineer at the PhD level. Look at your marks. Your marks are phenomenal. Your marks are amazing. Yeah. At the end, Tsepo doesn't want to do this. You don't want to be there. So you're going to come in, you'll do this, we'll pay you lucratively so that you can be quiet and stop complaining. But what are you giving back? What are you now putting out? Absolutely, there are large groups of kids, and maybe this is increasing. There are large groups of kids who do not need a higher education degree, provided that there is a scaffold and there's support for them to not have one and become entrepreneurs meaningfully. How do you then beat those companies that are going to say, no degree, no job? Yeah. So there's no sense in saying you can hustle, you can make it on your own. Everyone would like the idea of a successful hustle. You hustle hard and then boom, all of a sudden you make your big break. Those are called big breaks because they don't come to everyone. They're very rare. And I think that's the thing, that's the delicate balance we need to understand. Not everyone needs a degree. That's fundamentally true. But in order to run a country as a whole, in order to run a planet as a whole, we need to be very careful to not then have an academic shortage. Because what happens then to research if we now no longer have people in research? Because guess what? Everyone's hustling and everyone's making it big. Yeah. And you can saturate on both sides. You have too many people supplying the same thing. And once too many people supply the same thing, they all then end up supplying the same low standard thing. It happens on both sides. In academia, you saturate the field with academics, research falls away. Or not falls away, but it loses its standard because everyone investigates or does research only to the minimum requirement, just at that point. Yeah. There's no deeper investigation. There's no crazy investigation. There's no wild and exciting things. And as humans, that's what we are built up of. All of our amazing progress is built upon you were thinking along these lines and somebody pushed it just beyond what we thought was possible. So it goes both ways.
Okay. Talking about modeling and hustling, have you modeled your bad time management skills? How have you dealt with that? And do you cause friction in the home when daddy's not managing his time?
No, fortunately, I have a very strong team of time mismanagers. No. We function as a unit on mismanaged time. It works out really well. It's a bad habit that feeds into this bad habit, so it works out well. So I think perhaps it's fortunate in the sense that there's no friction to be caused. It's crazy all the time. I don't know. I suppose as a person with bad time management, I have the perfect scapegoat. I can say I don't have the time to manage my bad time management. So I think that kind of speaks to my favor.
Yeah.
I was recently reading that in the German culture, there's no such thing as multitasking. They will do
One
tasks
thing at a
in
time.
series because you do the best possible job. And I remember thinking to myself, boy, I would imagine a world where I had the freedom to complete one task
Are you a
at a time.
multitasker?
I have to be a multitasker because if I'm preparing lunch, I'm having breakfast while I'm preparing lunch.
I don't relate. I'm a one-task person. I'll eat when I'm done.
No, you see, if I go that route, I won't eat. I just won't eat, and then I'll put that off indefinitely. So I'll then have the lunches prepped, and then I'll get to the office and I'll be busy with that stuff. And then around 4:00, I'm like, why do I feel so weak? Why do I not have any? Oh, right. By the way, you haven't eaten, right? And my wife is exactly the same. Sharifa is exactly the same. Once she's in something, to move her out of that
she gets locked in.
She's locked inside. So she can multitask while this is going on. She can do other things. But things that seem to not really be as important, like eating, because you have to stop what you're doing and do a different task. That is, it becomes a bit unnerving because you're kind of like, okay, if I'm going to do this, I'm losing time doing that.
Yeah. And not eating though, bro. I'm not, I'm stopping what we're doing.
I know. And our entire household, we are eaters, we are feeders. That's what we do. We really enjoy doing that. So it's a weird thing that we have this dynamic of, if we're locked in a task, we in a set of tasks, we're going to do as much as we can because there's this faux productivity, right? I'm doing so many things. I must be doing well. I must be getting things done. You can see why there's a positive to it, but there's also very much a negative to it because you're doing lots of things. There's no way you have checks and balances over 5 tasks simultaneously.
That's why I'm a one-task person. Yeah. I need to do it and complete it.
Yes.
You see, so that's correct that if I multitask and I'm trying to do 5 things at once, then they never get completed. I never close it off. Yeah. And this idea of just being busy for being busy drives me nuts.
Yes, absolutely.
So I record now, I finish.
Yeah.
And then I'm not recording, I'm doing something else.
Right.
And when I'm editing, I want to do it and finish it.
Right. Yeah.
But being a father, interruption.
Exactly. I'll tell you what supports the multitask thing is that it's the being a father part and it's the being in academia part. Research is open-ended. You don't finish a problem. And so I suppose that is why it's complementary to the lifestyle.
Yeah.
I have some idea that I can do a little bit of a task and then a kid is asking you to do something. So it's like, okay, it's fine. I'll put this down. I'll deal with the kid and we'll have fun and whatever. And then you're kind of like, okay, we'll get back to that later. You have a lot of loose ends. So it is, there's definitely a career feedback and that kind of works well with the father part with, needing to be interrupted multiple times. It's just what happens.
Fathers, you say your dad was non-existent and then resurfaced.
Multiple times.
Yes.
Yeah.
You don't have the energy of my father was never around. There's an energy that people have.
Sure. So would you say the energy,
the energy you give me is like, no, this guy, father was around, mommy was around, it's all good. Well, it's not bad, but you know what I'm saying? There's no chip on your shoulder type thing about dad. And
right.
What do they call it when you have daddy issues?
Right. I'm with you. No,
so was he in and out of your life when you were young? You didn't grow up with him. How was that relationship when you were young?
Yeah. So I had a sister who was 8 years older than I. She passed on. And being 8 years older, that gap is wide enough that a sibling starts becoming kind of a co-parent, especially at the later stage. So he had a much stronger relationship. Obviously, he had 8 more years with her. He had a much closer relationship with her. But by the time that his relationship with my mother had decayed, I was about 4 years old. And I tend to be an observer. Right? I look at stars, I look at pretty much everything. I sit down and I watch and I analyze. And my understanding early on was, this person does not want to be here. Why should they be held hostage? How do you keep a person in the system? This was in the home.
Yeah. And you noticed this from an early age.
From an early age, I didn't see the point. I enjoyed him when he was there. It's almost sort of indisputable that I did enjoy him when he was there. But having seen enough interaction to kind of go, this guy doesn't want to be here, I became cool with it. I was like, that's it. I remember vividly, I had one time, I think 2 years later, I was about 6 or 7, where I had that moment of having sort of daddy issues. And I had asked my mother, why? Why does he not want to be here? And it was because it was a child question. I understand that there was a certain level of innocence in that question, but it was an unfair question to ask my mother, because I'm sure she herself was asking that question. And so there are no answers to questions like that. It is what it is. So 10, 12 years later, he resurfaced in the sense that, I don't know, it could have been that his sister felt that it was necessary for him to make contact, or whatever the case may be. This is where you have that standard scandalous, family drama. But he resurfaced. And he resurfaced kind of with the hopes that it would be a normal status quo.
So when you say resurfaced, when is this now?
I must have been 16 or so.
Okay, so he's saying now he's coming full on now. He wants to be around, he wants to get to know you.
He's back. He never left.
Okay.
As far as
is it one of those ones he never left?
As far as he's concerned, he never left. As far as he's concerned, he's here today.
Okay.
Don't ask about where he has been prior to, because it's as far as he's concerned, it's more or less irrelevant.
Yeah.
The point is, he's here, and what more do you want?
Yeah, he's here now. What's the problem?
What's the issue? Right. So, yeah, and again, for me, I was angered by that. Not for me personally. I was angered by that because I had known for a long time. I spent a year living with my grandmother after my parents had separated, because my mother needed some room to stabilize, to find a home that we could live in and grow in, and so I spent a year with his mother, and I got to see what she went through, in essence, losing a child, not having a child contactable. And she was, for many, many years, she was traumatized, for lack of a better description. As I imagine a mother would be, because a mother would kind of be like, did I do this? Is this my fault that these grandkids are going through this thing? What did I do wrong? As parents, we are so always critical of ourselves. So when he then arrived, wanting things to be normal, that's kind of like...
So how does it work? Does he just walk in?
This particular incident was, this one was a bit dramatic, right? Because his sister had called me and she had said something along the lines of, what would you say if I was next to your father or speaking to your father? And I'd say, I responded to her and I said, I would tell you to tell him to contact his mother, because his mother is heartbroken, and she's been heartbroken for many years because she hasn't heard from him. That's what I would tell you. There's a mother who is hurting, and before
this is you at 16.
Yeah.
Oh wow. You had that kind of insight at 16.
And I said to her, if there's anything that he needs to do more than this, because this is fine. This has now been fine. This is learned to adapt. It's okay. The system no longer requires his assistance. The system no longer requires his finances. The system no longer requires anything from his functionality. In this system is null and void. It's redundant. We may do. And once you make do, once you are happy that, things like fishing trips and all of those things, those are not in your book.
Yeah, they're not.
Those are not for you.
They're not happening for you.
And who are you going to fight with for that?
Exactly.
You can't sit down and be angry at someone for that. It's just that is the route your life has followed. So eventually, I think after his sister perhaps convinced him, or whatever the case might be, then there was this planned trip, and they tried to do some level of sort of integration. So I often regard that time as the moment in which we made contact again, if I can call it that. But shortly after, he fell off the radar again, and that he's fallen off the radar because not because you're trying to make contact, but because the people who are telling you about his doings are no longer telling you about his doings.
Yeah.
So you're kind of like,
yeah. It's that thing again.
I suppose they don't know where he is. Nobody knows where he is. And so eventually he then settled, ironically, living in the yard in which he grew up, which was quite interesting and quite ironic because the kind of person he is, he just believes that this is normal, this is okay, this is what has happened. And so whenever we interact, I kind of allow him to get his pound of flesh, for lack of a better description. Like, have the conversation with me to make yourself feel better, than we're done and dusted. At least we don't have to now sit in this weird, awkward state. So once
you still talk?
Yeah. I mean,
like when you visit.
So when we visit,
visit
my grandmother, he will be in the yard, and we'll have a conversation, and he'll ask, and he'll ask about random things that have no real impact. He'll ask about the car that I drive. He'll ask like that kind of thing.
Isn't that awkward?
It's awkward for him, and
for
because
you?
I know it's awkward for him, it's not awkward for me. But I have this mentality of, you put yourself here.
Yeah.
Now are you hoping I'm going to make it easier for you, or how do I even begin doing that?
Yeah.
So I'll give you an example where he called me for my birthday. Excuse me. So it was a weird call because, it's not often you have birthdays on a Saturday. And when you do have a birthday on a Saturday, you're likely going to take the day very easy. You're not going to rush. You're going to whatever. And this is despite us not being hectic birthday celebrators. Your birthday is your birthday. We'll go out for dinner. It's fine. And it's about 7:30, which by any measure is early for a weekend. But I have 5 missed calls on my phone.
Issue.
So I'm like, okay, this is strange. So I look at the number, and I've got a WhatsApp from this number. And it's a voice note. And immediately he comes out the door, arms swinging. Just immediately he's tried to call me. I'm not answering my phone. That's an accusation. He introduces himself. He says, it's your father.
It's your father.
Like, yeah, I recognize the voice. I know who you are. It's fine. But so within like 3 minutes of me listening to this voice note, he calls again.
Yo, he's looking for you.
He is looking for me. He is looking for me intently. So he finds me. And the conversation's as awkward as it's ever going to be. It's not going. We're not all of a sudden going to start bonding over life, because you have hang-ups about what you've done that you are not dealing with as hang-ups. You within yourself know, okay, maybe this is not how things should have gone down, but you haven't chosen to deal with that. So the awkwardness rests with you. He had the choice of kind of looking the other way and saying, I'm just going to pretend like everything's normal and we'll move on. But he doesn't have that side, that ability to act like everything is normal. So he gets stuck, and it's okay. So we're going through this conversation, and he asks how I am, he asks how everything is going. And now he must go through the regular socials. How are the kids? How is your wife? Right? Because he knows her name. He was at the wedding. It coincided with the time that he was around. So he was there for the wedding, and he wanted to get involved. And I said to my mother, let him do his thing, because he needs to feel like he's functional. Yeah. There's no point in making him feel dysfunctional. So let him do it. If he wants to supply cool drinks, if he wants to, whatever, it doesn't matter. Let me get on with my day, and then he can get on with his. That's, fine. So then obviously it hit him that he doesn't know my wife's name, or he's forgotten her name, or whatever the case might be. So he always finds himself in these situations where he can't get through the conversation because he's put himself in that position. And I'm like, hey man, that's life. What are you going to do?
Thanks for the call, buddy.
Yeah, exactly. And that was it. So 3 minutes later,
that's it. You're done.
Tons of awkward silence.
So was he calling to say happy birthday?
Yeah. he was
That's
calling
what
to
the reason.
his intention, or at least what he would like us to feel, is that he was calling to say happy birthday.
Yeah.
We will not know whether or not there was an investment, an emotional investment made that he wishes to cash in later.
But he knew it was your birthday.
But he knew it was my birthday.
And he needed to call.
Yeah.
What's going to happen in the call?
Nobody knows. And I mean, this is the first birthday call ever. He would have wished me as a child, but this was the first birthday call ever. So again, you're putting yourself in the situation, and I can guarantee you, except if you're committed, you're not going to get very far in this conversation. It's going to collapse very soon, and you won't know how to deal with it. And that's fine. Okay, so we've had the conversation. It's done. Are you happy? Cool. I'm happy. No problem.
Sharp.
Move on.
Wow.
So yeah.
Yo, talking about commitment. Converting from Christianity to, is it Muslim or Islam?
The religion is called Islam, and the person is a Muslim. So, yeah.
How does that work?
How does the conversion work?
Yeah.
Oh.
And why?
Okay, so conversion is, I suppose, a simple process. A person recites what is referred to as the Shahada, which is the acknowledgement that there exists a singular God that has no children, is not the child of another thing, is the creator of the universe. In essence, that is what the Shahada is. The why for me was a very personal journey, because as a Christian, I did not feel that I flourished, right, religiously. But also I felt that I was surrounded by entities that did not have my growth as a human being overall at heart.
Okay.
In that I was surrounded by a set of people who had no appreciation for science, but more particularly felt that my appreciation and my love for science was anti-God. And that for me was kind of like, how do I deal with this?
Yeah.
I've come here and I've said, I have a close connection within myself with a creator, with my creator. And my belief in my creator is strengthened by my understanding of science. And you're telling me that that's not the way.
So is this from your community, church leaders?
Not from the church leaders as such,
parents,
because I mean, at a very early stage, both my sister and I dropped out of the church structure, because obviously we'd been, we'd seen the typical Hippocratic behavior that arises in standard organized religion. It's a standard thing, right? So we kind of moved away from that, but there was still the surrounding entities of, you think you're more intelligent than us because you're doing this and you're not doing that. And this was from sort of connected family. So having then found a religion that was seated in seeking knowledge and appreciating that these things are God's creation, but that it is your responsibility as a human being to understand these things. That for me was home.
Yeah. So did you need to find a religion though? Was it something that was important to you?
I don't think I needed to find it in the sense that I wasn't looking for it. I found it.
Yeah.
And when I found it, I was kind of like, okay.
Okay.
What's this? Let's have a deeper look. And when I then went through the history of the religion, I was then moved by how, Islam spent the first 400 years translating every bit of scientific text that they could, because they wanted to understand everything. They wanted to know scientifically what the world knew. And if it wasn't for that work, there would have been no continuation globally. We came from the Greek times, the Roman Greek times, out of that period into the Dark Ages. And Islam took that stuff and pushed it forward to the Renaissance for the Renaissance people to then take over. As humanity, we have a responsibility to carry the torch of knowledge along. None of us are going to be around here forever.
Yeah.
No human being will, but no nation will. Your nation can be, we can celebrate the greatness. If you think about all of the world's nations today, they're all new, right? With an exception of the old ones, right? And we have that responsibility. And Islam fulfilled that responsibility in that middle time. So that by the Renaissance period, doctors were learning about the body, from the Islamic texts. And so that was their role, and it was an important one.
Okay.
So that again kind of went, these are my people, right? And so that's,
you could connect it to...
I could connect to who I was entirely, not
yeah.
just this part that is going to say that God is the creator of all
we need
things.
this
and we
part
have
to accept this one, but not the other one.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're just accepting this side. We're going to skirt around that one and just ignore it.
Okay.
And I didn't want that.
So when did this happen? You met Sharifa
I met her in university. So I'd say that my exposure...
Both of you? Or
both of us?
were Christian then?
No. She's Muslim born.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So I'd say that I had sort of the first inklings of the existence, a deeper understanding of the existence of this religion in first year. Remember that when you arrive at a university, you may have been exposed to 3 Jewish kids and 5 Muslim kids in your school.
Yeah.
And now you get to a university and their entire society is devoted to these people.
Yeah.
The accessibility of information becomes significantly more. So I'd say that when I was at first year, coincident with the time that I'd met her, it was kind of like okay, you one of these guys. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
That makes sense. It's, what is this about? And now I have
so
a
that also
first-hand
aligned.
account. It aligned.
When are you like evidence that connects? That makes sense. This is me. This is who I am.
Right.
This thing you're bringing makes sense to where I'm trying to go.
That's it.
And if it does, then we're moving in
That's
the
it.
right
I'm
direction.
on board. Once I know that there is I don't want to say a logical reason.
Yeah.
Reasons are not always going to be logical, because if we can only rely on logical reason, then we can't rely on the existence of a God. There's nothing logical about that. It's a thing of faith. There must be some kind of alignment, as you said, right? And once that alignment occurs, you're kind of like, cool, this is where I'm at.
Yeah.
So it developed from there. And I spent a lot of time learning about the religion, the structure of the language, because Arabic is the language of the Quran, and therefore there are lots of things that you need to understand about. So I spent those very early days learning a lot. And I like to consume information. I enjoy doing that, especially of things that intrigue me. So it worked. The timing was just right for that to happen. And so, that's, often when people say why, and it's not, I can't give you one particular answer. Like, things worked out that way.
Yeah, it's sort of like it led itself to that.
That's it, yeah.
Okay. Tell me about your kids, man. What do you like about them? What don't you like about them?
The things I don't like about my kids are the things that I like about my kids.
Same.
Yeah.
So you say before I get sorted.
Sure.
You say you're most at peace, like when it's bath time and they don't want to get into the bath and it's chaotic.
Yeah.
I'm the least at peace at that time, right? My tension is here.
Sure. And for the most part, at the surface, I probably am exactly the same. In fact, I am.
Yeah.
Without a doubt, I can't even say probably. At that point, I'm exactly the same at the surface. But there is this thing that happens, and no doubt Sharifa is often involved, even if it's passively, even if it's just me looking at her, looking at these kids, and recognizing us and recognizing not us. It's nice to recognize yourself in your children, and that's fine. There's a certain comfort to that. But it's a completely different and amazing thing to recognize an entirely different human being that exists of their own, that you are a part of creating, but you are not a part of that thing. That part is itself. It came out. It's this creature's personality. It's a wild thing, because you kind of like the classic thing to do, I suppose, is as people of this part of the world, we have this habit of going, who does this in the family, and then assigning it to that thing.
Yes.
And sometimes you're lucky, sometimes you're not, and you don't find someone, but fundamentally you're recognizing something that's not you. So at the surface, I'm mad as hell, man. Like I want to flip tables, and it's insane. But just for a brief moment, there's this, look at these guys literally doing their own damn thing. That for me is like realizing and recognizing that it's part of what we've built. It's an amazing thing.
Yeah.
It's the thing that reminds me at that moment in time that in if there was war, if there was anything at that moment, these three people with me, the four of us, I would build a lead ball around it I would do whatever to protect it and to keep it safe, to keep it together, to keep it in that state. I mean, like I said, I think at the surface, definitely frustrated, but deep down at the heart of it, I'm kind of like, this is when my family is my family, when they exist as an entity.
Yeah. And then looking at them, so you mentioned that, the world that we live in, and it's important to equip them to be able to obviously survive in that
For
world. But looking at their personalities, and it's hard to say now, and it's because you're a modeling person when you try and figure things out, how they're going to work. Where do you see their lives going? Like when you look at this one, you're like, this one I think could be this, and this one, this, that. And is there a wish you have for your children?
I'll start with that part first.
Yeah.
Honestly speaking, the only wish I have for my kids is that they do better and be better than what I was or what I am. I think there's nothing more important than that view, because my philosophy is they don't belong to me.
Yeah.
Like we're the custodians. We're building them for the world. So the best thing that I can hope for is that I'm giving the world something better than what I was. In terms of where they'll go, in terms of, the kind of people they'll be, it's difficult to say because they're such dramatically different personalities. Aman is a very gentle soul. He's extremely adventurous, and in this way he's very much like his mother. He's very shy, he's very scared, but he wants that new adventure.
Oh, really?
So it's this crazy kind of contradiction where we're like, how do we manage this? You understand what you are asking for. It's going to scare the living daylights out of you. Are you sure you want it? Yes, I definitely want it. We went to Sun City last year sometime, and I said, this is going to be so easy. We are going to be in the wave pool.
Yeah, ne?
Job done.
Yeah, and it's a fake one. So when it's coming,
it's easy.
Yeah.
Yes. Except Aman sees that boomerang slide, and Aman is like, that is where we're going.
And you didn't think he
I knew there was a chance.
Yeah.
Like I said, he's very adventurous. I knew there was a chance, but I knew that there were many avenues for him to stop. You have to climb lots of stairs to get up there. It's extremely high. For me, predicting this kid, running this model, it was a no-brainer. He would see it. He'd want to, but he would reflect and he'd be like, nah. This is too crazy. I was wrong. I was 100% wrong. And we climbed up and we got to the top and we did that thing. And for me, it was insane. It was an intense experience because I'm scared for him. As much as I might have an idea of, I'm sitting on this tube. If I bounce this way, this is how the tube's going to move. I have that idea. I've got, that's fine. I don't know in practice that this is going to happen. What if this thing flips? What's worse is he's sitting behind me. I have to be the one in front. So, I'm scared I'm going to go down the slide.
Yeah.
He was fine. And he was there. He was front and center. He loves gadgets. That is his entire existence. Everything is. But in this age that we're living in, which kid isn't? Right? So I honestly do see that he would probably go into this place of developing tech or working with tech or that kind of thing. Adam, on the other hand, is very much natural. Nature is his thing. He likes spiders. He's scared to death of spiders, but he likes them. That's one of the things that I suffer from. And but he loves dinosaurs. He loves. You open up a book on the human body, and you can keep that kid busy for 2 hours.
Yeah.
He likes that. So he's very much connected to the natural side of things. But again, you see this interplay and you kind of see this cross interest. People would obviously say, you want your kids to be scientists. Maybe, maybe not. I don't want some kid with some insanely radical idea in science that is just not going to be part of what is required at the time or part of what works. That's pretty much it. So I do think that of their own, and probably because of our influence, passively, they might end up in the sciences. But given their individual personalities, Adam loves to argue. this guy could be in law if he wanted to. He'll basically just say, no, you're wrong, and then he'll win. That's his thing.
I feel like that's their class.
Yes, and that's their class. Their class does have that very present individuality. This is what I think, and I'm not going to hold back on what I think.
I don't like this.
Yes, I don't like
Why
this.
did you put it in my lunch tin? I told you I don't like it.
Exactly. And that's exactly the conversation that I have regularly. It's like, you give us bananas every day. Why? We
What's
don't
with bananas,
eat them.
bro? Like, you're telling me the same thing. It's like,
don't
I told
eat
you I
them.
don't like bananas.
I'll tell you this. Peer pressure.
Yeah. Oh.
It's as simple as this.
Yeah. Someone decided somewhere.
Someone decided, and now the consensus is, guys, off peak, bananas are fine. On peak, when you are here, when you're on duty, there's a rule. If you're caught eating a banana, you are not part of us.
You're not the person.
Because when we get home, Aman is like, I want a banana.
Yeah, there's no issues at home.
I'm like, yeah. So peer pressure in this environment works well, but it also doesn't.
Yeah.
You kind of have to feed into it, count the wins and move on.
Yeah, that's what parenting then comes in, right?
Yeah, that's it.
So this concept, I'm going to get to your tools and habits of we raise them for the world, which is custodians. Had you believed that before you became a dad? Or is it something you picked up along the way?
Definitely before. Definitely before. Because I've spent a lot of time at perhaps an over-the-top way of saying it is I've spent a lot of time in the service of people, in the sense that I've spent a lot of time speaking to people, whether it is doing the astronomy that I do, so the public astronomy I do. I've spent a lot of time speaking to people, and I've seen a few people who do similar things. And it occurred to me more often than not that every single human being's maximum functionality, that part that he does the most, is not being someone's child. It's being something else.
Yeah.
The main functionality of a doctor is not being a husband to his wife or a wife to her husband. It's that person being a doctor. So we are raising ourselves to be elements and instruments for the world. And I've believed that because I've seen it for a very long time. And so as much as we are entitled to love them and raise them and all of those things, we still are doing it not for us. We're doing it for the world.
Okay. So it speaks to your point then that you want them to do better and be better than you.
Minimum requirement. Minimum
requirement.
requirement is, and that's maybe all I can offer, is that, hey guys, at least this kid's better than I was. I can't guarantee that I can craft Mahatma Gandhi or Bill Gates. I can't guarantee that. But I can guarantee that I can craft at least better than me.
Yeah. And also those are global examples, So the more I speak to people, the more I discover that what we deem as regular people do amazing things.
Yeah.
It's just that those stories have been well documented. The world knows about it. But you discover, like you discover that, wow, there's people that do stargazing and they do this research. And for it to work, right? For us to get oil, someone had to go do what you guys do,
oil sequestration, right?
You
And
see what I'm saying?
model, absolutely.
And then once you start to connect it,
Yep.
you're like, wow, once you can get this kid to learn to self-develop and figure out what they want, whatever they choose, they can have an amazing life.
Absolutely.
In spite of all the noise, which I call noise, this social media, internet.
It is. No, it's very much noise. I mean, I think the point, especially now more than ever, is that you'll find that the story is often way greater than the person.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
It's not to say that
now
these people
we're
aren't...
finding out now because celebrities, it's coming out now.
Right.
And
yes.
you
Right?
too.
and it's not to say that this person wasn't great. It's to say that the story about you is way greater.
Yeah.
And also we had room to filter. We had room to create a God out of this normal person. You look at a Bill Gates or whoever, this person has done what any other person would have done in that position.
Exactly.
Or at least what most people would have done in those. The difference is your company was successful and mine was not.
Yeah.
Your theory was successful or your theory was recognized and proven and tested. Mine was not. It doesn't take away from the humanness of that person. And that's the dangerous part that we're in right now, is that now that people are discovering that human beings are human beings, it's now all of a sudden as though there's this lack of perfection. I expected this person to be perfect, but they're not.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, this person's human before anything else.
Yeah, but we forget.
And we forget.
We had forgotten.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, even when I was young, I did.
Yeah.
You idolize, you fall in love with people,
Yeah.
rappers, movie stars.
Yeah.
Only later now am I realizing that these people are actually human. Things are coming out. Because like a lot of them, barring doing something illegal, all these things, it's just what human beings do.
They're just human.
You expected this guy not to do it because he's on TV.
Because why? He's on TV. It's why I've adapted the philosophy of appreciating what the person does, not who the person is, because the chances I don't know who that person is.
You definitely don't.
Some of my most inspired scientists, Albert Einstein, a known womanizer.
Yeah.
Known.
Yes.
It's not that it was a secret. He is a known womanizer. He was a known womanizer. Does it take away from the theory of relativity? It does not. Because that part had nothing to do with the human being that he was. He didn't weave him being a human being into the theory he developed. It had nothing to do with each other. So I've learned to appreciate so-and-so's music, not so-and-so, because I don't know who so-and-so is. We've never sat down as you and I are sitting down now. We've never had a cup of tea or, whatever.
Exactly.
We've never socialized. So I don't know who you are socially. That's the scary thing. And in some ways, to bring it back to fatherhood, is that our kids will have the same view of us. Our kids will view the superheroes in us, and they do have the right to view every aspect of our lives that we expose them to.
Yep.
Because we engage with them socially. And we engage with them parentally. We engage with them at every possible level. So we then have to allow them to see our vulnerability.
They have to.
Allow them to see our mistakes, our flaws. Be able to say to them, well done. You did this better than I did.
Yep.
Because that then kind of allows them to go, the person I've placed above me is as human as I am.
Yeah.
And then you kind of like, okay, cool. It's no one above, no one below. We're all standing here hand in hand in this long chain.
Yep. That's the nice thing about parenting now, as opposed to our fathers, I guess. My father was the same as yours, but I only seen him a handful of times.
Right.
Yeah, but I was an aggressive kid, so I confronted him about his problems. But he was drunk at the time, so it never worked. I never found him sober to have this conversation. You know that?
Fair enough.
Never, not once. But I'm saying now, the fact that we are here, we're present, they get to see everything, And I said in the beginning of this podcast when I started that I want my kids sooner rather than later to realize that I'm not a superhero.
Absolutely.
As hard as that will be.
Yeah.
And I hope it doesn't come with like when you really did some dumb shit, but to realize that, we're all fallible, bro. We make mistakes.
No,
I apologize. Oh, Dad, you didn't get that. You know what? You're right. I actually didn't do what I was supposed to do. So it's those conversations. Because when I started this father thing, I thought I'm a father.
Yes.
You are a child.
Yes.
This thing is going to work like this.
Yeah.
But I had a wife who didn't share the same thing.
Right. Right.
But she was very instrumental in helping me bring
find
that
the balance, right?
But also when you start to learn these people, they have
Yeah.
personalities,
Yeah.
right? As you're saying.
Yeah.
They have thoughts, they have feelings.
Yeah.
It's like, shit, I can't just dictate.
Exactly.
That's not going to work.
Yeah.
And it never works.
Yeah.
Whenever I try that.
No, for sure.
Cool. And you said for new fathers, get your hands dirty. You said there's some fathers that like refuse to like change nappies or something. Does that still happen?
Still.
Really?
It's strong. It is. I'm speaking about. I've got friends who are like that, and I know. I mean, I've seen younger people in exactly the same boat. We're still a long way away from understanding that, especially at that early stage, your gender norms are not. They don't apply
There's
here.
no such.
At this stage, you don't need to show your 2-month-old how tough you are. Your 2-year-old can't even see you properly at this stage, right? You have nothing to offer from that perspective.
Yes.
In the early days, all they need is the ship and the captain and the co-captain who have to change
Those
positions.
roles,
Right? Because you have to, from an early stage, have them realize the person who can do this will be the one or should be the one to do this.
Yeah.
Because the minute you say, guys do this, girls do that, you're already fighting a system that wants to fall into that
mentality. Yeah.
It wants to. The system.
And you want to fight that.
The system automatically wants to do that. So you are fighting against what the system naturally wants for itself, and that is a scary thing when you actually sit next to this statement. So you have to get your hands dirty. There is no way you're going to get by. If you think that poop stinks, it stinks for everyone. That's just how it works, right? And whatever you think is going to happen that is sort of predictable, especially in terms of getting your hands dirty, it's going to be way messier than that. And the sooner you confront and the sooner you're okay with that, it's normal. Yeah. You know?
Okay. And experiment with your kids. Of course, I mean in this ethically, biologically, and socially sound.
Right. I don't want people doing crazy things because it was said on a podcast, right? Yeah.
Okay. What do you do with your kids to harness that experimentation?
So, I mean, a lot of the time they want to do stuff, and there's no direction. They investigate. You know, that investigation should be fostered. So whatever it is, whether it's messing things up and understanding, so if you're making a mess in the kitchen, why this turned out this way. And these things are not going to be things that you are going to be okay with. It's just how we were raised. Our generation doesn't have that. Our generation is fixated on not wasting. Our generation's fixated on... You have to break that, because when you allow your child to do unconventional things, your children learn things from that experience. There's an educationist who said the worst thing you can do to a child is give them the answer to a question. Because in doing that, you have ruined their ability to investigate and make that discovery for themselves. Yeah. So a quick example is Aman wanted to know if he could mix milk with lemon juice. And off the bat, I'm like, I'm telling you now, this is a bad idea. I did the experiment myself, and you're just going to throw the stuff away. It's a waste. Please don't do it. He's like, nah, I really want it. I'm like, okay. Here's some milk. Here's some lemon juice. Give it a go.
Go ahead.
He does it. Obviously, the milk curdles. Yeah. He's mind blown. He's like, I wonder what this would taste like with some sugar. And my stomach is turning at this stage. I'm like, listen, I only stopped at the milk part and the milk and the lemon juice part. You are now taking this one step further, and I think we shouldn't. I think we're getting dark here. This kid took a teaspoon of sugar, mixed it in, and he drank that thing.
And loved it.
He loved it. He loved it. He loved the taste. He was able to identify the flavors. He was able to pull. So that experiment for him was a taste development experiment. It was a chemistry experiment. We developed so many different things in just that one opportunity, when the standard thing would have been, no. Yeah. I'm sorry. You're not doing this. There's no need to do this. So, you have to experiment, and it has to obviously be within safe bounds, but you have to allow them to do. Aman loves to bake, but he hates to follow instructions. So to date, my son has only made really thick pancakes that are sweet, but they're hard and chewy. Yeah. And I have to say to him, you've done this your way, but this has already been done. Now you've done it your way. You've seen what comes out. Let's see why we have to do it this way. Okay. And when we follow it this way, oh, look, a cake comes out. There was a reason for that. So it's important. I mean, I think it's well understood now at this stage that kids pick up maths, physics, and chemistry at least easily from the ages of when they are old enough to walk. And they will ask the questions if you allow them to do those experiments. That is what I mean. I mean experiment, because you stand an opportunity to learn a lot. And especially if you're a parent out of science who doesn't know this, why did the milk curdle? You can now go back and you can investigate that, and you can learn something. And you're in a position to say to your kid, I don't know. I honestly do. Let's sit down together and find out why this happened. And then your kid is in a position where your kid's like, holy crap, this guy and I can actually learn something together. We can be in a position of ignorance together and emerge out of that better than what we were before. And that, I think, is a powerful tool.
Oh, man, I like that. That's so dope. I'm going to try it now, because, I've got Mpo.
Yeah.
Yes, I know he's coming. The next thing he says, I want to take your advice.
Okay.
So, next thing he says, does this do this? I'm going to be like, you know what? Let's give this a shot.
Give it a shot.
Let's see what happens.
Just make sure it's not live wire. That's why I said what I said.
No, with that guy, yes, you have to put parameters in,
Yeah.
and you have to be there to
Absolutely.
to watch this thing.
Yeah.
But you know what the funny thing is? He will ask me something, but he knows the answer. As in, if I do this, I'm gonna burn. I'm like, I'll put the stove on and there's the flame. It's like, oh, can I put my hand there? What's gonna happen? I'm like, you know what's gonna happen. I'm like, am I gonna burn? Or am I gonna die? I'm like, well.
Look, I mean, if they're at the death stage, if they know that death is serious,
Yeah.
they've done well enough. It's okay.
No, he knows. Cool, man. And then you said the last thing is read. Now, is this for them reading or for you?
For you,
Reading, figuring out, learning new things.
There's an abundance of information, and yes, unfortunately, a lot of it is crap.
Yes.
So you have to be careful. But we're in the era of kind of saying, as parents, we judge ourselves worse than anyone, and that I don't think is a feature that will ever die out. I think that's, if there was such a thing as a parent gene, I think that is the characteristic of the parent gene, of you judging yourself. You know.
Yeah.
But enable yourself to have as much access to information about things, because information is readily available.
Yes.
And for the most part, it's basically free.
Yeah.
Right? So when you enable yourself with correct and often scientific information, you protect yourself against these weird cultural norms that you fall into that are more often than not going to pull you back rather than take you forward. Not to say culture is bad. We have to take the best of everything that we've got and create new packages. We can't take the things that, the whole package of something, because if there was a broken feature in that thing, leave it behind and move on.
Yeah.
And that comes up often. So you'll find, why do we do this particular thing? I don't know. Your mother did it. Your grandmother did it. Your great-grandmother did it. Yes, but why? More often than not, it's not going to be, because it was just a cultural thing. People are idiots. It'll actually turn out that there's a sound reason behind it, and you can actually go, oh, right, okay, cool, that's fine. We can go with it for this reason. But without reading, you're blind, right? You are governed by what you think you know and what you think is right.
100%.
And you could be stuck with that one child that is a bit more complicated than what your brain can handle. You who works at a bank and does these complex calculations, and you're stuck in this circle.
Both of them, by the way.
Right?
I can't handle it.
Right?
Yeah.
Because they could be just a bit more complicated than what you think.
Yes.
And so find out, inquire on those things. You might get a set of answers of which you agree with 1% of the answers that you've received, or none. And that's fine. But it's now given you perspective. It's now said, okay, cool. This is the general idea. Medically, scientifically, this is what's actually going on. Where do I fit in there? How do I then put myself in? Because we're very quick to kind of say there's a professional that needs to deal with this.
Yes.
The line between where you need to stop trying to fix it as a parent and start getting professional help is a blurry gray line. Your child has a cough. You can medicate that from home. How should you medicate that from home? You need to be sure about what's safe and what isn't safe. If your child is suffering from something that's way more complicated, you need to be at the stage where you yourself can say, this child needs medical attention.
Yeah.
The same thing applies to pretty much any other aspect of being a parent, is not knowing where that line ends. I cannot assist my child beyond this point. Now somebody needs to step in and do that.
No, I'm with you there.
And you need to be very okay with that, knowing which side to toe the line.
No, I'm with you there. I mean, I remember when they said, I think Tsapo needs an OT. He couldn't do what they call fine motor skills or whatever, like tying your shoe and whatnot.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, what's the list? It's like, oh, he must learn to tie his shoe, he must learn to hold the pencil. I was like, we can do that at home, And once Tessa and I agreed, we're like, oh, okay, it just needs time, right? You need to sit with him.
Yeah.
He likes you when you sit with him.
Yeah.
Don't give him work and then go
off. Right.
Sit with him. This is how you hold the pencil. YouTube a few things, a few tutorials here and there.
Yeah.
3-4 months, he was there.
Yeah.
But that's it. It's like you judge, okay, this one I can do. It's
exactly.
in my powers, this one. It's just going to require effort from us.
Right.
But
and where would you have been without you going out and looking for that additional information?
Yeah. You see, and now I've got that info to say, oh, I can apply this to the other kid.
Exactly.
You know, so we know what we need to do next time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Brother, man, awesome, man. That
Thank
was
you.
so dope.
Thanks again. It's been an awesome conversation.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming through.
Cool.
Sure. That was an interesting episode, man. Thank you so much for listening all the way. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe and rate the content wherever you listen to the podcast. Until next time. Shup.